Okay, investors, welcome to your reading. If you are a new investor and you're looking at different places to put your value that you currently hold, or if you are already a seasoned investor and have value tied up in multiple assets, this reading is for you. So essentially, we're just looking at overall advice that we can get through divinatory means, having to do and relating to anywhere that you would be kind of putting your money and your stored value in order to either save it for the long term, like a more conservative approach, not necessarily trying to make a ton of money, but just, have hedges against currency inflation and things like that. Or it could be, as well, that some of you are looking to actually make really good returns, and maybe some of you are even like day traders or more short-term investors. So just whatever kind of investor you are, just keep an open mind and see if there's anything in this reading that resonates with kind of what you're currently going through with your decision-making processes, and let's see how it goes. So while I was tuning in for the investors that are going to be seeing this video, I was kind of getting this impression of someone sort of closing their eyes and just being like, okay, I'm taking some steps forward and I'm proceeding almost on faith. And there's a feeling of slight being daunted a little bit with maybe some uncertainty, which of course we know there's a lot of uncertainty. The stock market's doing great right now, but of course I know a lot of people are concerned about, a crash because things are so high right now. Others of you could be daunted by simply going into like a new investment class and really doing your research, but also having to kind of at some point make that leap of faith, which, it does feel like faith, even though you've done all of the homework basically of learning about, maybe companies that you're investing in or commodities or precious metals or whatever it is. Even though you've done, tons of homework and research, at some point you do have to make that plunge. And, some psychological research has been done on the decision-making process in human beings, and they found actually that the emotional centers of the brain are always activated when someone makes a decision. So when we mentally kind of hypothesize about things, when we research things, when we plan things out, when we engage in strategic thinking, that's always like a mental, rational process. But the actual moment that a decision has been made, the emotional centers of the brain are actually what is activated. So ultimately, when we weigh pros and cons and when we think things through, those are all really valuable points of analysis, but the ultimate thing that happens is that we go with our gut instinct, is really what it appears on a physiological level. So all that preparation is great, and that can help to trigger, an accurate, intuitive, or emotional response in us when we're making a good decision, but it always does kind of come down to our feeling impulse, right? So let's take a look at our cards and we'll get some more information about messages for investors in December of 2020. Okay. And I'm also going to get you your path and obstacle energies. Path for investors. I'm going to get you a surrender oracle card. Accurate message for investors. And I'll get you a Bob Ross message just because there is something creative about investing as well. Okay, so your path card is the oyster, and the influence is the cobra, which is about a teacher, interestingly. So, again, you know, this really does, the oyster really matches what was coming through symbolically in the meditation about kind of feeling potentially like you're afraid to kind of go down some sort of path. And the visual darkness of the oyster card, you know, this card is about clamming up, and it's about, you know, feeling daunted about like opening up to something, right? And so that really feels like it's relating to what was coming through in the meditation, that yes, there is a lot of darkness. There's a lot of uncertainty is really like what the symbolism of the darkness of this card represents to me. And it's true, you know, we don't know where things are going. We're living in very unprecedented times, but there are still some known cycles that we can look to, and there are some really good ways of measuring real value, even when we have all of this uncertainty around the worth of various currencies around the world at the moment. The coronavirus pandemic has caused governments and central banks to become involved in financial practices that are, you know, in some ways debasing currencies. So a lot of investors right now are feeling a push to put money and value into things that are maybe more securely going to hold that value. Whereas, you know, sometimes with fiat currency, we get kind of a feeling of like, okay, this is worth what it's worth right now in dollars, but these dollars may be worth less next year because of all this money printing, or, you know, so on. So there is this sense of like uncertainty of where do I go right now? I feel like you're being pushed really to embrace another level of your investment strategies if you are an investor. And one of the things that's coming through as like the influence is the cobra, which is this is about tradition. This card, if you read the description in the deck, it has to do with a teacher as well, like a wise, very experienced teacher. And so there is something that we can look to as far as conventional wisdom when it comes to storing value and storing, you know, our value in things that tend to hold their value, such as gold and silver, or such as investment strategies that are tried and true. Maybe having, you know, diversification and not having all your eggs in one basket. Certain like axioms almost I feel are comforting and are giving you some structure, right? So I want you to just be aware of where kind of this financial wisdom is coming from in your life. Maybe it's somebody that you've read their books in the past and you want to kind of come back to them, maybe like investment strategy type books. Go back to what like works and what holds an element of traditionalism and financial wisdom that will withstand, you know, the changing times, right? Like go deeper than the surface level, like, oh, this is hot right now, or oh, this is dropping right now, or, you know, try and go past the current trends to things that kind of supersede the trends. So that's kind of the message with that. Let's take a look at your cards. Wow, you've got the Empress, so things are good. You've got the Eight of Swords, King of Wands, Ace of Pentacles, Five of Cups, and the Seven of Wands. You've got the Queen of Swords and the Six of Wands. Interesting. And this is my first time doing a reading like this specifically for investors, so I feel like I'm learning as I'm doing this how these readings are likely to work. So forgive me if I take a moment here. You know, it's like I feel like things are good with the Empress. Some of you could have some money in real estate, or you could have just something, whether it's a big or small. Investing is relative, right? So what works for one investor, or what is like a positive thing for one investor, is not going to be considered a positive thing by someone else. It's about where you are now and growing your value and being creative and productive and supporting companies as well that are ideologically positive, right? Like it's about feeling good about what you're doing with your money, because your money is sacred. Spirituality and money should not be diametrically opposed to each other. We shouldn't be bringing our money blocks and our negative attitudes about money into our spirituality, because everything under the sun is connected, to the spiritual laws of the universe. So it's not like money is something that we should be shying away from and thinking, oh, that's not spiritual. That actually is indicative, in my opinion, of having some kind of psychological blockage and then making that seem like it's spiritual, when in fact it's actually, an avoidance tactic to not have to deal with some kind of area of your life that could give you major growth, major personal growth as well. So yes, there are issues with, money and currency and negative things having to do with that, but just as any other situation in life, there's a, negative pillar and there's a positive pillar, or there's the pillar of severity and the pillar of mercy, and everything is a dual topic. So if you only think about money in a negative way, or if you feel like you shy away from it for some reason, then you're not embracing the actual duality of life in a very central way. So anyway, with the Empress and the Eight of Swords, it almost makes me feel like some of you have an investment tied up in something that's doing well, but you're feeling a sense of fear around it, or you're feeling like you're stuck in it somehow. And I don't know why you would feel like that if it's doing well with the Empress card, but this could also be a message that something that you're concerned about is actually doing okay, right? And because I'm saying that, because the Eight of Swords is where we get tied up in our own mind and where we start to make assumptions that aren't necessarily coherent with reality. But the Empress is about self-sufficiency, particularly for women, but also for men. She represents a profound ability to, expand and grow on what she already has. She's linked to agriculture as well as, pregnancy. So there's a sense of growth and evolvement of, one thing to something much bigger and infinitely more influential and creative than it was before. So there is a sense that something is growing, but I feel like you're maybe dealing with some fears around, like maybe when to sell. If you own a stock, for example, that has gotten really, really valuable with the Empress, and you're like, I don't know what to do, if I should get out of it right now. Is the stock market going to crash, or is it going to, plummet? Some of you could also be invested in real estate or agricultural commodities when I look at this as well. I would say don't get stuck in this first week of December. Don't get stuck in worrying about things that seem to be going well. I feel like this isn't the time to be concerned with that. I feel like with the Eight of Swords, this is really about working on your own thinking, right? This is about recognizing that if you are feeling any anxiety, it's because you're thinking a particular way. And you need to go deeper into the emotional and psychological reasons behind why you may be feeling the anxiety, because it may not actually have anything to do with your investments. It could have everything to do with some sense of, fundamental insecurity or instability that's left over from a different phase in your life, So you want to just be aware of where those kinds of negative beliefs or negative self-talk is affecting things that are actually going well for you, and you don't need to worry about it. But you could always, split the difference. Like if you own, for example, a stock that has gone up a lot in value, instead of selling your whole position, you could sell off just the profit that you've made and cash out on that. So there's different ways that you could go about this, but, I just want you to consider where you're at psychologically and how that is, affecting your attitudes towards your money and towards your investments. Now, the second week of December, we do have the solar eclipse, and on December 14th. And for the Ace of Pentacles and the King of Wands coming up, I really do feel like there's some kind of promising opportunity Some of you, it may have to do with the number 5, because what's standing out to me is the 5 points of the Ace of Pentacles. So it could be a company or a resource that has to do with the number 5, or it could also be as well that there's a good opportunity for buying gold. We have seen in the last week that gold prices have started to come down after being quite firm for a while. So the second week of December could be a good buying opportunity for things like precious metals, particularly gold. With the Ace of Pentacles, it just feels like gold would be strongly indicated there. So if you're interested in gold, you may want to check the prices. Again, this isn't financial advice. This reading is not meant to be giving you financial advice. It's more about looking at the energies that you could be experiencing and seeing, what decision you want to make for yourself. But looking at this, I would say, because the King of Wands is an opportunistic king, and then you've got the Ace of Pentacles, which is like a gold coin, this could be a good opportunity for getting into gold or precious metals in general, if the price continues to slide a little bit over the next couple of weeks. I personally expect gold to go up again. So that's why I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, that looks like maybe a good opportunity to get in. So the third week of December, you've got the 5 of Cups and the 7 of Wands. And so there is some kind of a loss or a feeling of frustration with something. So for some of you, if you own a particular, a lot of a particular ETF or a particular stock or something along those lines, the 5 and the 7 show this sense of loss and this sense of like, the cups are down on one side, but the cups are up on the other side. So it's like you still have a lot of your value, but something is kind of being lost. And, you're feeling kind of defensive of your position for some reason in that third week. So those of you who are invested in stocks, you may want to think about just how things are structured, and are you able to withstand the highs and lows? Because a lot of times what happens, depending on what the equity is and like what kind of instrument it is, a lot of times things will go down, but then they'll come back up again. That's what we've seen this year so far. We've seen some dramatic lows like around COVID when that all started, but then things have just come up substantially since then. So, just don't worry too much about whatever this is. And if you want to prepare, like I was saying before, in the first week of December, you could also potentially sell off, some of the profit like that you've already made off of an investment, like cash in on some of it and then retain your position, but at a more minor level. And that may prevent, some kind of dip or some kind of feeling of regret around like a potential dip. I don't know that this would really make sense because the market tends to move upwards in the third, basically around Christmas time at the end of the year. But things end up really, really well with the Queen of Swords and the 6 of Wands. So it's almost like staying rational with the Queen of Swords and staying principled as well about what you're invested in, and kind of not being swayed too emotionally by the ups and downs in the markets, or not being brought into more of like a reactive attitude is going to pay off. Because the Queen of Swords, she's cold as ice. She is not going to go up and down. She's very good at like setting her own attitudinal set point. Like she sets the intention for how she's going to proceed and feel. And that's just something very, very clear about the Queen of Swords, is she's going to set her own intention about her life, and she's going to live by that and die by that, and so she's not going to be somebody who's going to be controlled or easily controlled by fluctuations in the emotions of people around her. But the 6 of Wands is showing some kind of victory in conjunction with that. So if you can kind of keep a level head on something in the third week of December, I feel like it's really going to pay off. Even if you have some worries about investments that you've made, or even if you have some frustrations coming up, or a sense of, wanting to defend your position somehow, somehow are wanting to kind of fight off, like the phrase that comes to mind here is like keep the wolves from the door. For some reason, it's like you feel this kind of defensiveness somehow over your position, maybe either in, something that you've invested in that's like, I guess, market based, or it could even be like an equity of some kind. But I do feel like there's something here about, like, if you can just stay level headed, that's really going to pay off at the end of the year. So it looks really, really good. You could also be seeing some kind of victory when it comes to a purchase. Like if you are purchasing, let's say, a property with the Queen of Swords, this would be, being very principled and clear about your negotiations and not letting yourself be swayed. Just really sticking to your guns will pay off. So if you're negotiating on a property, it's okay to be firm. Whether you're the seller or the buyer, you can be firm about whatever your offer is or whatever your limit is. And that's going to pay off. So it looks good. Really, really good for finances at the end of the year, which is really, really interesting. Your Bob Ross message is, isn't that fantastic? I knew you could do it. So this is funny because remember I was saying the oyster is like not wanting to open up to something and feeling anxious about something that is new. It's like you're daunted about this new task or this new format of investing or this new format of conserving your resources. And then, you get this Bob Ross message of, isn't that fantastic? I knew you could do it. It's like, yeah, something feels scary to you because it's the beginning. It's something feels like, oh, maybe you've never invested in real estate before. And by the end of the year, you're actually buying a property and you're like, oh my gosh, this is really scary. I feel like this is like a sense of relief after doing something that really stretches your comfort zone. And you're going to feel like, oh, you know what? That wasn't that big of a deal, actually. Like, I'm really fine. I really was able to do that, and it wasn't as scary as I thought. So that's kind of the thing. It's like you're getting over some sort of a challenge, but you have to surmount this challenge in order to go to the next level with your personal wealth and your personal holdings, and with it having a sense of security in life. That's what this is all about. It's about having security and strength within your positioning just for yourself and your family so that you can support causes that you care about, and so that you can be a beacon of strength for maybe when somebody in your family is going through a tough time and maybe they don't have their financial house in order. You're going to be, investors who are successful are often the ones who are called on when everything is, frankly, pardon my French, but going to shit. So if you have your house in order, if you have, at least for the most part, you're challenging yourself financially and you're learning the tools and you are doing things with a sense of proactiveness and looking to the future and assessing, potential problems, like, are you going to have to, take care of an elderly relative, or is it possible that somebody could become needy at some point in your life? This is a really great way to prepare for that, and it's an absolutely moral thing to do. And so I think we really need to challenge ourselves to get out of this mindset that financial planning and investment is greedy or that it has something to do with something negative. Absolutely not. I can't tell you how many times, growing up, my mom being a single mother, with my sister and I, were helped by family members who actually had, their financial house more in order than she did because she was a very young mother, and nobody in my family was wealthy by any means, any stretch of the word. No one in my family has ever been wealthy as far back as, generations that I have seen. But just, having things like, a little bit of savings and foregoing, sacrificing a little bit in the short term so that you can have a little bit of padding in your bank account. The fact that a couple of people in my family held down regular jobs was something that was super, super helpful to my sister and I, and actually kept a roof over our head. So I think, this whole topic of money and investing and having security and financial strength is something that is super important. And I would love to be able to do that kind of, be able to help other people in this way. So anyway, that was just kind of a rant, but let's take a look at your oracles. Wow, you've got surrender, denial. Look, we've got another person with a bandana like over her eyes, or a covering over her eyes. Whoa. So this is gonna alter what I was saying about these cards a little bit, okay? It says, accept people and situations exactly as they are without denying the difficulties. Then you can see things clearly and make the best decisions. So there is a big message here about surrendering, denial. And I'm wondering if for some of you, if the Empress being linked to that has to do with, and look, they're both in fields of wheat. Oh my gosh, you guys. They're both in fields of wheat. So one thing that I will say with this is like, it could be that you're in denial about something negative, but I also kind of feel more like in the beginning of December, what the denial really is a denial that you can take this next step in your, financial investment journey. I feel like there's a denial of your own potential, because the field of wheat, it's a symbol of harvest. It's a symbol of abundance. It's a symbol of being fed, being able to be fed, right? Bread is, it's a very powerful symbol of sustenance. And that's what we make wheat, or that's what we make bread from wheat. So there is something here about you denying your potential in some way, denying yourself the possibility, because you're thinking, oh, I haven't done that before, or, it's like, I don't make enough to invest in that way, right? Or I don't have enough money to start thinking about the future, for some of you. Or if you already, are a very seasoned investor, it could be that you are blocking yourself from the next ceiling that is, above your head at the moment. So everybody's in a different place, right? Everybody's in a different place when it comes to their financial journey. So whether you are just starting out or you have a lot of experience, there's always going to be that next scary thing that you probably should do, because that it's going to be really helpful to you and your family, and that you do need to make some kind of decision, right? Like, that's been something that I have really struggled with my investment strategies, is that I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart, and I tend to want to hold out until the price is right for something. And sometimes that can really, like, that conservative approach can really work against me, because I will have a tendency to kind of wait and wait and wait. And what I'm really doing is just putting off making the decision. I'm not actually making a proactive decision of saying, okay, when it gets to this level, or, looking at the trends, like, I will just have to jump in at a certain point that, makes at least some sense for me based on what I know. Like, it becomes more about like aversion to risk than about an actual strategy that I'm employing. Do you know what I mean? It's a procrastinating approach. And so I wonder if some of you guys aren't going through a little bit of that as well, is like, you need to maybe accept that you do have the potential to move forward and that it will be worth doing, but you're sort of in denial of the abundance or the prosperity or the strength that could actually come to you through taking a more serious look at a certain type of investment. So hopefully this reading is making sense. You do have the power card from the Sacred Destiny Oracle, which is all about the ability to make things happen and striking when the iron is hot. So again, I feel like this card is really speaking to your ability to initiate positive change when it comes to your investments and your financial holdings and all of your strategies that basically boil down to, having strength when it comes to your financial groundings. And so I feel like the power card is saying you can absolutely make things happen right now. Like, this is a time for action. This is a time for action. This is a time for trusting, the insights that are coming to you both through, your mind and research and your analyzation skills of, different investments that you would want to make, but also your intuition and your instinct can't be ignored. So I hope this reading has been helpful to you guys. Please let me know what you thought in the comments. If you found this reading at all helpful in any way, I would love to hear from you. And I would also love to hear from you if you're not crazy about this format, because I do need to make some changes on my channel, but I don't know exactly how I want to do all of this yet. But hopefully this reading is beneficial to someone out there. Remember again that this is not financial advice, but really I'm just looking at divinatory insights and messages that could potentially be relating to the financial energies that you are experiencing, but this is just a general reading and it's not going to resonate with everyone and it's not for everyone. So just keep that in mind and always make your own decisions or even seek professional financial counsel. Okay, guys, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I'm sending you tons of wishes for your prosperity, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your 2020, and I will see you very soon. Bye.